I shouldn't have seen it. Not that night, not through the window of our penthouse in London, but I did. He wasn't alone. Her hand was on him, and his thumb was tracing a line down her spine, as if he had forgotten he had ever loved me. The chandelier above them caught the light just right, casting gold across her hair and his face, and in that second, I realized that love wasn't dangerous because it could leave. It was dangerous because I had trusted it to stay. I stayed anyway. My name is Amelia, 27, dark hair tied loosely at the nape, skin pale but flushed tonight with adrenaline, sitting in a chair that had never felt so cold. I wore a soft cashmere sweater, gray, and black trousers, the kind that didn't scream elegance but drew attention in silence. My lips were parted slightly, breath held in a rhythm I didn't control. I had watched him, the man I thought was mine, betray me in a way that wasn't loud, wasn't messy, but deadly in its precision. He smiled, and she laughed, and in that moment the world tilted. New York, Paris, Berlin, every deal he had been chasing, every reputation he had been building felt like it had led him here, to her, and not to me. And yet, I stayed. Because I knew something he didn't. Love had been brutal between us, yes, but I had learned its anatomy. Every pause in his voice, every unconscious touch, every way he leaned into me only when he needed reassurance, those were tools. Tools I could observe, catalog, and one day, use. We met in a cafe in Milan once, in sunlight that made his eyes shine like coins. He had laughed at my clumsy coffee order, and I had laughed with him. That moment of careless joy felt like another lifetime now, because I knew now how easily trust could fracture. He had become predictable, dangerous in the way a predator becomes familiar with its prey, not out of love, but out of habit. I watched him sleep that night, lying beside me, unaware I had seen everything. His chest rose and fell, his hand rested near mine, relaxed, trusting me still, and I touched him, not like a lover, not like a friend, but like someone cataloging the movement of a storm. My thumb brushed his skin. I traced the line of his jaw. I remembered how he used to say my name softly, almost unfinished, and I let him believe nothing had changed. He had no idea how cold I could be. Love isn't always violent. Sometimes it's surgical, precise, calculated, and I had already started. The next day, he called me. He sounded normal, casual even. His voice carried over the phone from his office in Frankfurt. He asked, "Amelia, you awake?" And I could hear the faint hum of London traffic in the background. I pretended to be groggy, weak, and worried. I asked him how his meeting went. I listened. I laughed when it felt appropriate. Every nuance I gave him reinforced the idea that I was still the same woman he had known. But inside, I was already planning. Every conversation, every micro-moment became a field of data. The way he paused before speaking, the way he unconsciously straightened his tie when I complimented him, the way his fingers fidgeted when he thought I wasn't looking, every one of those moments was a breadcrumb leading me to the truth. He thought he could charm me back, play me like he had played every other part of his life, but he didn't know that I had no intention of returning. That night, we shared a bed. I let him pull me close. His head rested against my shoulder. He whispered my name in a low, trembling voice. I kissed his neck the way a lover might. My body was warm, soft, attentive. I let him think I was still hers. And I was watching him fall apart, quietly, invisibly. I had learned that cruelty doesn't always scream. Sometimes it waits. And tonight, it was patient. By the time he awoke in the morning, I had already rewritten the rules. The woman he loved, the one who forgave instinctively, who softened herself around his flaws, was gone. What remained was warm, familiar, polite, but unreachable. He would feel it soon. Morning light slipped through the glass walls of our penthouse in London, thin and pale, the kind that made everything look honest, even when it wasn't. He moved around the bedroom quietly, careful not to wake me, as if tenderness could still earn him forgiveness retroactively. His name is Julian. 34, clean jawline, expensive restraint in the way he dressed. A man who built his confidence on control, boardrooms, negotiations, outcomes. He believed chaos belonged to other people. He leaned over the bed and kissed my forehead. I felt his breath pause, waiting for a response, waiting for reassurance. I didn't move. He smiled anyway, left anyway, took his phone, his cufflinks, his carefully rehearsed lies, and walked out into a city that still belonged to him. For now. I lay there long after the door closed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the quiet calculation that had already been completed weeks ago. Revenge doesn't begin with rage. It begins with clarity. I didn't want to expose him. I didn't want to scream. I didn't want him ruined in a way he could explain away as bad luck. I wanted him to understand. And understanding takes time. Julian's world ran on access. Private flights between London and Frankfurt, discreet hotel suites in Paris, a reputation that followed him into rooms before he arrived. He wasn't famous, but he was known, trusted, the kind of man investors described as solid, and I was everywhere in that world, not visibly, not loudly, but structurally. I had listened when he talked. I had remembered names he forgot. I had smoothed conversations, softened impressions, turned friction into flow. People trusted him because I had taught him how to sound human when it mattered. When I stopped doing that, the change was subtle. At first, he thought he was tired, then unlucky, then misunderstood. Meetings ended colder than expected. Calls didn't return quickly. An investor in New York postponed just to reassess timing. A partner in Berlin asked questions Julian wasn't prepared for. He came home irritated, but still composed. I met him with warmth. That was important. I cooked, I laughed, I listened, I touched his arm at the right moments. I made love to him with the kind of attention that felt grounding, not desperate. I let him believe intimacy still meant safety. Romance didn't disappear, it sharpened. There's a particular kind of closeness that exists when one person is confessing without realizing it. Julian talked more those weeks than he ever had before. About pressure, about expectations, about how he felt stretched thin, like everyone wanted something from him at once. I lay beside him, tracing idle patterns on his chest, letting my breathing match his. "You're the only place that still feels steady," he said one night, voice low, honest in a way it hadn't been for months. I kissed his shoulder. That wasn't a lie. I was steady, just no longer for him. The first real fracture came in Paris. Julian had insisted I join him for a gala. Old money, quiet influence, the kind of room where reputations moved without announcements. He wanted me there, needed me there. We arrived late, fashionably. I wore black silk, minimal jewelry, my hair pulled back cleanly. I looked like someone who belonged anywhere she stood. Julian held my hand tightly, too tightly. Inside, he moved differently, less relaxed, watching faces instead of commanding them. When he introduced me, there was something fragile in his tone, like he was presenting proof. I smiled. I spoke softly. I said very little, and I let other people fill the silence.
A woman from Geneva asked Julian about a deal he'd implied was finalized. He hesitated. A man from London referenced a partnership Julian had been leading. Julian blinked. I felt the moment shift beside me, his hand tightening, his posture stiffening. Later, in the car, he laughed too loudly. "Strange night," he said. "Everyone seemed off." I leaned my head against the window, watched Paris blur past. "Maybe," I said, "or maybe you've just been busy." He nodded, relieved by the gentleness of my response. That night in the hotel room, he made love to me like someone trying to anchor himself. His movements were careful, almost reverent. When he whispered my name, it sounded like a plea. I answered him with my body, not my future. The woman he had betrayed me with, Sophia, wasn't a secret anymore. Not to me. She existed in fragments, a message preview on his phone, a familiar laugh echoing too close to memory, and a perfume I recognized on his jacket. I didn't confront her. I didn't confront him. I waited, because timing is everything. Julian's biggest opportunity arrived unexpectedly, a transatlantic expansion that would anchor his influence in the United States permanently. Board seats, long-term capital, a move that would cement his name in rooms that mattered, and I was central to it, not officially, but undeniably.
Each time the pattern repeated, not dramatically, not obviously, but unmistakably to anyone watching closely. Julian relied on me to regulate him. Without my emotional labor, without my anticipation, my translation, my steadying presence, his weaknesses surfaced naturally, not as scandals, as inconsistencies. Investors didn't distrust him, they just didn't trust him enough. Julian felt it before he understood it. He started asking me to join calls again. "Just sit in," he said. "You don't have to say anything." I did. I smiled when appropriate. I nodded when spoken to, but I didn't intervene. And Julian unraveled faster with my silent presence than he ever had without me. After one call, he shut his laptop harder than necessary. "They're overthinking everything," he snapped. I looked at him calmly. "They're thinking," I replied. "That's their job." That was new. I used to cushion his frustration, translate it into reassurance, remind him that pressure meant interest. Now I let it exist. Instart began to feel it internally, too. Julian missed small deadlines, contradicted team leads in meetings, changed strategies mid-week. He had always done these things, but I used to catch them, smooth them, fix the damage quietly. Without me, the cracks stayed visible. Sophia noticed. She had been drawn to Julian's certainty, his forward motion, the sense that he was always 3 steps ahead of the room. As that eroded, so did her interest. She stopped staying over, stopped asking about the company, stopped touching him like he was untouchable. One night, after Julian snapped at her over nothing, she said flatly, "You're not who you said you were." She didn't wait for an answer. By then, the board had started asking questions too. Not accusations, clarifications. Why were deals stalling? Why were partners hesitating? Why did Julian sound less consistent? He had no answer that held, because the truth was simple and unbearable. Instart had not been built by one man. It had been stabilized by one woman who stopped unpaid work. Julian tried to fix it. He apologized more, promised focus, brought me small gifts like offerings. "You're different," he said one night, holding my face like he could press me back into place. "I need you." I believed him. That was the tragedy. But need is not love, and love is not obligation. The final blow came quietly.
A delayed email, a postponed meeting, we've decided to go in a different direction. Instart didn't collapse, it emptied. Julian sat alone in the office one evening, staring at a skyline that no longer felt like a promise. Julian spiraled. He paced, he snapped, he stayed awake at night, staring at the ceiling. I stayed calm. I stayed kind. I stayed just distant enough to remind him something essential was missing, but never enough for him to name it. When he realized it fully, it was already too late. He hadn't lost me in a fight, he had lost me in function, and when I withdrew, the world saw him clearly for the first time. That was the revenge. Not destruction, exposure. One night, he finally broke. "I don't know what's happening," he said, sitting on the edge of the bed, head in his hands. I sat beside him, placed my hand on his back. "You're losing control," I said softly. He looked at me, eyes red. "Please," he whispered, "don't leave." That was when I knew it was time. I didn't leave. I ended him where he stood. Not his life, his illusion. The next morning, I handed him an envelope. Inside were documents, correspondence, timelines. Not accusations, clarity. He read silently, his face drained of color. "You knew," he said finally. "Yes." "How long?" "Long enough." He looked up at me then, not angry, afraid. "You planned this," he said. I met his gaze. "No," I corrected. "I allowed it." Silence filled the space between us, thick, unbearable. "I loved you," he whispered. "I know." That was the brutal part. I didn't deny it. I didn't weaponize it. I let it exist without saving him. I moved out that afternoon. No scene, no goodbye kiss, no dramatic pause at the door. Julian didn't follow me. He couldn't. The version of me he depended on no longer existed. Weeks later, I heard about him through mutual contacts. Deals lost, influence faded, Sophia gone, quietly, inevitably. He wasn't ruined, he was exposed, and that was worse. I relocated, traveled, took meetings in Switzerland, spent time in England, walked streets in France where no one knew his name or mine. Love didn't disappear from me, it returned to a private place. One night, alone in a hotel room overlooking the city, I realized the final truth. Revenge doesn't always end with satisfaction. Sometimes it ends with freedom. Julian would live, but he would always remember the moment he realized love had been present and had chosen not to save him. That was the cost. That was the consequence. And this was the end.